everyone. Welcome back here to Bases Loaded. We got our three guys here, Brandon, Blake, and Chris, here to talk the latest week in Major League Baseball. There's only one of our teams is in first place as of right now. Diamondbacks are in first place. Just gotta say, just gonna throw it out there.
I was wondering how long that was going to take.
Nope, it took about 30 seconds. You kidding me? I did not think that we'd be in first place at this point of the season. We have yet, like, the longest losing streak that we've gone on is 3. We've done it multiple times, but we would always stop it at 3. But I'll go more in depth about that. We're going to start the show off talking about literally the hottest hitter in baseball, Luis Arias of the Miami Marlins. He's hitting over 400, and I've seen people that put him in the same breath as Tony Gwynn. I'm like, y'all, it's impressive what he's done. Do you know how hard it is to hit 400 over 5 to 600 at bats?
Yeah, but you know what? It's actually really funny you referenced Tony Gwynn, because I saw a very interesting stat yesterday when it came to a rise in Tony Gwynn. And through their first 447 games in the MLB, Tony's slash line was 324, 375, 411. Arias is 326, 384, 421. So, I mean, he's really started his career out very well. And I think the most important thing for him is the last 15 games, he's batting 458. Like, he's going through these streaks where he's just incredibly hot. So I think he's at 403 right now. So,
Yes.
it's
403
definitely going to be something to watch, because obviously, that 400 number is sacred in baseball. And it will be very interesting to see if a player in this modern era can keep pace and make a chase into this late until like August, September.
And it's nice to see that his team is winning games, because it would be completely pointless. He's hitting 400, but the team's like 4 or 5 games under 500. They're 35 and 28 right now. If the season started today, they would be the second wild card. And they're staying close in the East there. So
they're
only
games behind that Braves team. Yeah.
Yeah. Like, they have a lot of players that you don't like. You're like, who?
Yeah.
Like, yes, they have Jorge Soler, who Blake probably just has just nightmares about. Luis Arias there. Jesus Sanchez is a line drive machine. Every time I see him, I see a highlight from him. It's either a line drive in the gap or a line drive down the line. Like, and they're doing all this with Sandy Alcantara really not pitching very well.
Yeah.
He's been absolute garbage this year. Like, I have him on my fantasy team, and like, dude, it's like, with my first 3 picks, the way they went, I was like, dude, this is literally lights out. And for him to like my first 2 picks were him and Bieber, and dude, they've literally like crapped the line for me basically. But no, I mean, a guy that you failed to mention too is you got to show some Yuli love on there too as well. That's where he landed.
I mean, we don't have to. We don't have to show Yuli love.
Batting north of 300 right now too as well, which is huge for them. They're just finding ways to like keep up. I mean, Chris kind of took all the talking points away of that.
Sorry.
On 400. No, it was great stuff, man. Like, but yeah, to have a guy day in and day out go up there and do that, and the way that we have not only analytics in the game, but people changing up their approach on him, and pitchers like being craftier and watching film on him, for him to just continue to keep doing this is something that's really, really impressive this day and age of baseball, because of how the next gen has actually come into figuring out how to solve hitters, how to mix them up, how to basically act like you're tipping a pitch when you're really not. That takes so much plate discipline to sit there and read a ball and see what's going on next. And for him to continue to keep doing this, I mean, there is no advantage for the pitcher right now when he steps into the plate. So let's see how far he can actually. And he's doing is producing results. So I mean, it's going to be interesting to see how long that he can ride it out.
I really hope that he does. Like, if he gets into September and he's like either I'd say in the 390s. Like that's gonna be that will be something really exciting to watch. And as long as Miami stays in the some sort of playoff spot, whether it's God, that'd be so crazy that they win the East. Like that would be like I was like, all right, who had the Marlins winning the NL East with NL defending champion Phillies, the stacked roster that is the Mets, and then the Braves, who've been basically dominant the last 3 seasons.
Well, let's
Marlins
think
stayed there.
about what we talked about in the preseason when we during spring training when we were making our predictions. Like it was a 3-team race, and it was going to be 3 teams in the NL East that were just going to run laps around everyone else, and the Marlins were not one of those 3 teams. So credit to my guy, handsome Skip Schumacher, for doing a great job with them so far this season down there.
Yeah, I'm definitely gonna keep. I didn't like. I have casually kept up on the Marlins. Really only watched them when they were playing either the Diamondbacks or the Padres. But I'm gonna keep my eye a little bit more closely, not on just seeing what Arias does, but just them as a whole. Like they're 7 games over 500. About 100 or so games to go. So we're almost halfway there. I think we're about 3 weeks away from the halfway point. So it'd be because the last time the Marlins were good, I think, was the shortened 2020 season. Which I'm like, does that really
beat the
count?
Cubs in the playoffs. But yeah, no, the 2020 season doesn't count. Let's remember that.
Yes, that definitely doesn't count there. So I would love to see Luis Arias finish the season at 400. But like he has to what? So let's just think here. He probably is going to play 150 games. He's got to be at over 450 at bats. I think to even qualify because I think you got to. I think it's you got to average 3.1 for every game played. So yeah, you got to think that's probably at least 450 at bats, maybe even 500 at bats. Like it's literally 200 hits. That's crazy to think about. So, you would have, you would have to put him, especially if the Marlins make the playoffs. You have to put him in the MVP conversation. Like you just have to, especially if they do that. So I'm going to keep an eye out there. Moving on to our next topic, we have another massive Dominican with the last name of Cruz, who just I don't even know if burst onto the scene describes it. I don't know what word describes what Cruz has done the last 3 days. That home run, first of all, the home run call itself was great. He's like, that ball had a family.
Mm-hmm.
I thought that was, I was like, you normally hear that when like people like jokingly are talking about a ball, but you don't hear an actual broadcaster say it.
Yeah, they're already printing shirts with it on there and stuff like that. But you know what's cool about it, Brandon, is like you hit it on the head. That wasn't a broadcaster saying that. That was a natural reaction of the ball. And when you think about it, I think the coolest story out of all of it is who would have gone to the game with all of their crew in their 20s and sat on the furthest row on the top right field bleachers and expect to walk away with a home run ball like that. That ball was absolutely smoked. The story about like the younger kid catching the ball, not say younger, but he's like in his 20s probably, out there with all of his friends and him negotiating basically, a meet and greet, not only for himself, but his whole crew that was there with him. Dude, there had to have been like 8 or 9 guys that were with him, and they all got signed baseballs, all signed hats and bats, and got to hang out with him after. I think that's a really cool story. You know what I mean?
You got to make sure, if Cruz is who everyone is thinking he is, those signed balls could be worth a lot of money in 20 years.
Well, the story's gonna be, no matter what he turns out to be, that's gonna be something really special, But yeah, it's cool to see him. It's almost like, I don't know, dude. It's copy and paste, because both of those guys are literally in the same division, They're literally playing like really, really close with one another. I like it, man. I think it's cool to see these guys, and I think it's cool to see guys that have a lot of persona and charisma that get called up. It's not just your
Yeah.
average Joe prospect. It's a guy that's lightning in a bottle. And I like seeing these dynamic players come up that are marketable for baseball, if that makes
Exactly.
sense. Because honestly, the last couple of nights, like this kid in this story is getting more pub time, on like, ESPN and
Thank
stuff
you,
like that.
Reds. Thank
You know,
you. Beating
but
the Dodgers too the last 3 nights.
Right? Walking them off twice.
but at the same time, it's cool because this time of the year, baseball really needs to put a push on the market since we're really not competing with a lot of the sports that are on dead time right now.
Yeah,
you
and
have
it's there's some
about 6
interesting things.
weeks.
Yeah, so when it comes to De La Cruz, like there's some amazing numbers that he's put together. Like we can talk about the home run, but that pitch, I think it was the first hit he got, the one that was 4 feet out of the strike zone, and he ripped that thing into the gap. Like there was no batter in the entire Statcast era has hit a pitch so high, so hard, which is just impressive. When I saw the replay and saw how high out of the zone that was, I was like, holy crap, that turnaround speed was amazing. And then also his run from first to third in the triple was the fastest recorded time. It was 10.8 seconds from from home to third this season.
And guess who had it before? Corbin Carroll.
Corbin?
And Corbin Carroll is 6 inches shorter and he weighs 30 pounds less. Like that's great. Like
yeah. The other great thing was obviously the night his first home run, Will Benson hit the walk-off for the win for the Reds, and it was the first time Reds teammates hit their first career home runs in games together since 1907.
6'5",
So, I mean, it's great for the Reds, like obviously, like, last year we all sat here and talked about Cincinnati as one of the worst teams in like baseball history the first month or two of the season. So it's great to see them have some young prospects out there that seem like they're getting the fan base excited and, making baseball fun in Cincinnati. So let's hope like, things go well for the Reds. Cause I mean, that's a franchise that, I love to see succeed because it's such a great city.
Yeah. They're currently 26-34. So you would think, oh, playoffs are not in reach. 5 games back. They're 5 games back.
Anything can happen in the Central.
I swear we talk about this every week. Both sides of the NL, both sides, AL and NL Central, are just awful. So is the team really out of it in the Central right now? Like everyone is like saying, oh, put a fork in them. The Cardinals are done. I think they're 7 games back. But I'm like, you have Goldschmidt and Arenado. And the way the Central is for the NL, I don't think they're out of it. I really don't. Like a 5-game win streak by the Cardinals, they could be 3 games back just like that.
Mm-hmm. I don't think either one of the Centrals are out of reach right now, AL or NL. I think whoever is the most aggressive buyer at the All-Star break in either one of those divisions could take the division. A lot of people have shut down. Even we could say the same thing, Brandon, about the White Sox. But the White Sox are, just a pitcher or two away from figuring out.
They're 3 games back.
Yeah, they're only
28-35.
This whole like season has been, it's been weird but fun at the same time. I mean, if you look at like I saw a tweet. Hold on, I saved it earlier. Hold on, I have it right here. It shows the top 5 ERA leaders from last year, which were Veras, Cease, Ano, and some dude from Miami that we were just talking about. Okay, dude, JV had a 1.75 ERA. Now, granted, we all know that he was hurt, but he's got a 4.85 right now. Okay, dude, Cease, like he was splitting votes with Verlander for the Cy Young last year. He was at a 2.20 ERA last season. He right now is at a 4.63. Okay,
so I found that same tweet.
We all saw what happened up in Toronto. 3 days ago, the Astros finally killed a pitcher up there and sent him back to Florida. Thankfully he got out of there before the wildfires affected his breathing. But then you got a guy like, dude, we all like crowned this dude in Miami last year of being the next great pitcher, and look at him. He's got a 5.07 right now. It's weird to me that like it's all pitching miscues, if that makes sense, this season. Because look,
Yeah.
we say here all the time when we get close to the trade deadline, every team needs what? Pitching. You're always going to need pitching, regardless if you have a juggernaut rotation and a great bullpen. Everybody can always use pitching. But I think that this trade deadline, that arms are going to demand such a high cost because across the board, it's I think a lot of these races and a lot of these playoff battles are going to be won by teams that reload their bullpen with the struggles that they've had. But I feel like a lot of teams are going to have to give up a lot because the managers know this across the board, that pitching is going to be a hot commodity at the trade deadline. And I think that they're going to demand way more than what we would give up for in the regular seasons, that people would be just slaying it like they have been in the Spider Tack years.
Yeah, I think it's going to be an arms race at the All Star break, and it's really going to be find those arms and stockpile everything. But one thing I want to ask you guys, because I mean, you look at the AL Central and you see the leader is one game under 500. Does the AL Central winner at the end of the season have a 500 record?
Yes. I think just barely. I think it's like 82 and 80. Just barely.
Yeah, and see, with seeing both of these teams come through and play the Astros too,
Yeah.
I still, dude. Honestly, I'm not counting Cleveland out, and I'm not counting the White Sox out either. I really think that if two of those teams can get it together, I honestly think that we could sit here and argue that Cleveland and Chicago have better pitching than the Twins, okay?
Yeah.
And I'm talking back end as well too. So if they can just figure that out, and just like Brandon said, it's the same scenario with the Cardinals. If Minnesota goes on a cold streak, that's something. They've lost 5 in a row, okay? And on
Yeah.
top of that, we when we went through there, lost 2 variable winnable games with them. Okay,
I know that feeling.
so I'm not sold
Bet you don't.
on Minnesota. But I think that there's a lot of teams across the board in the American League and the National League that are gonna have a wake up moment, and I don't understand why it's taken this long for a lot of those juggernaut teams to figure it out.
I'm just glad that as an overall view, everybody's taken a while to heat up because that makes me feel a little better. But I think the interesting thing about the AL Central is you talk about the Twins and their 5-game losing streak. Detroit has lost 6 in a row, and they're only 3.5 back. So it's
Right.
like the AL Central is just a garbage fire right now, and it's very interesting that we talk about the Cardinals and the NL Central because they are 8 games back right now, and they're in last place in the Central. And I still think they're probably they can easily do one of those things where they go on a 2-week run. Milwaukee struggles, everyone else in the division struggles, and they can get themselves right back into it. So
hmm
there's going to be some interesting races to watch. Not like for the all world beating competitive power, but just to see who can survive and stay on top.
Well, what the manager needs to do is he needs to tell the clubhouse, look, guys, we got to quit looking in the past, and we got to figure out what's ahead of them, because when you really look at the standings, they're a sweep away from being middle of the pack, and then all you have to do is just keep chipping away right there.
Yeah.
Once you start getting that, and if a team can just get a little bit of confidence, they can do a lot. Honestly, I really think that we'll be talking about how the Cardinals went on a run even in July. And I see that being the hot team that could come out of that division.
So 2021, at about this time, the Braves, who won the World Series that year, were 29 and 33. Last year, Phillies were about the same at this time of year. They win the National League.
What's the Padres record right now?
I think it's 29 and 33, isn't it?
It
So,
is.
like that. I think the Padres will figure it out. I think offense will get it together. That team is too talented. Bob Melvin is too good of a manager for them to not at least make the playoffs. Now, winning the division, that's going to take a lot of work. I think they're 8 games back right now?
Yeah, 38 games.
I have an honest question for Chris, and this isn't a loaded question, and this isn't like a baited question, which I'm really good at, but I really want to know, like in San Diego, what is the local because we all know local radio stations, sportscasting, they overreact all the time. And we all know when a team is not performing, it's fun to have a 2 hour segment of who are we going to blame? Who are who? What is the culture out there? Are we blaming people not being consistent, or is there saying that there's disagreements in the front office and the manager, or is Bob like catching any of the heat? I truly want to know what's coming out of the local talk shows over there.
So honestly, it's interesting because like we're in a situation where like I think people still, even though it's June 8th right now, I think people understand that this is too talented of a team for them to struggle. So they'll figure it out. But I think it's more frustration with the team overall because at this point, like there's just a lot going on where it's like we've talked about it. I know we joked about it in the group chat and stuff, but like scoring one run every other game is just like mind-boggling to me. It's like what is it? They've scored 9, 1, 10, 1, 6, 1, 5, 1, 10. Like
Hmm.
it's like the way they're scoring right now just makes no sense. But there is a lot of talk about AJ Preller and his inability to take criticism and his control over the developmental side, the analytics side, and just a lot of questions about that. Because I mean, you can really look at this organization and look at how many players have really gotten better since they've gotten to San Diego. And I'm not saying like, everyone is god awful, but you don't see a lot of improvement outside of guys like Kim. Like you look at a lot of these guys and for lack of a better term, a lot of them have regressed. Like
Hmm.
obviously, Tatis is Tatis, Soto, Machado is struggling right now, but he'll get it together. But outside of that, there's kind of a cliff that a lot of these guys fall off of right now. So it's I don't think there's panic hit yet, but the hand is hovering over the button right now because if they continue to play like this on this up and down roller coaster, you can only see it so much before you really start to truly question it, especially with sellout after sellout and the fans not really seeing good baseball at Petco Park game in and game out. So the blame's kind of like maybe on the front office and mostly on the players, but I mean, it's one of those things where I think they're still calm before this storm, but the clouds are brewing right now, I guess.
Like you brought it up, there's a lot of guys that when they have not gotten better, a lot of them have gotten worse. Like Trent Grisham, for example, is literally batting what like 190 right now.
Mid. Yeah.
Cronenworth again is struggling through the first 2 months of the year. He's just hitting over 200. But like you said, Tatis is Tatis, Soto is Soto. Machado will figure it out. He was out for what, like a week and a half, 2 weeks. So he just has to get back in the groove of things. This team has way too much offensive talent to not at least get a wild card spot, which they're right there. I think what was it, two and a half? So sorry, three
Three
and a
and a
half.
half. Yeah.
Three
But
and a
I
half
mean, I mean,
back.
they have the second best ERA in the NL pitching wise. So it's not like they're struggling on that side. It's just it's maddening. Like we joke about it, but it's like we watch this team and runners in scoring position. Like that's finally seeming to get over a little bit of a hump, but the struggle's still there. But it's like you look at this roster up and down and see what they're doing in runners in scoring position, and you're like, this is a joke, right? Like they're messing with us. Like it's baffling to see what's happening on the field. And for a guy like Gary Sanchez to walk onto this team and now basically be the best catcher we've seen since Benito Santiago, like it's one of those things where it's like, what is going on? But
I mean, when you have Nola, that's like literally just pure trash. There's anyone coming in will provide a boost.
yeah.
No, Sanchez has been amazing.
Yeah,
Like,
I just hope he keeps it up until Campazano comes back because I know he's going to fall off that cliff at some point because it's Gary Sanchez and he strikes out a lot and it's just kind of his MO. But if he can continue to at least hit well until we get Campazano back in mid to late July, like that would be huge. And if he keeps it up, he's a quality designated hitter that we can keep off the bench, especially with him, Carpenter, Odor, all kind of finding their way with the bat right now. So it'd be nice to have this kind of rotation you can mix in and mix and match depending on matchups and lineups day to day.
yeah, one person we forgot to bring up, Xander Bogaerts. But I
He needs
think,
to be on the IL.
yeah, I think we figured out why he fell off a cliff. He got hit on the hand, and he was trying to play through it, and he just
Well, it's apparently a nagging injury he's had, and he's normally just getting shot up with cortisone shot left and right in Boston. And here in San Diego, they were like, we can't give you another one till the All-Star break. So he took one in spring training, was feeling good, obviously was looking good early in the season. And after he got hit on the wrist, his batting average went down. He's declined, and he's trying to play through it right now. But it's again a frustrating thing about this organization where it's just like, just put him on the DL, give him like 10 to 15 days, like let him like rest, and you've got enough infield to make it work. Like it's not like he's out there playing like, a superstar. Like just give him the time. And it's like this team for some reason does not like to put people on the IL, and it's just infuriating.
I think that 10 days. I mean, he's missed the last 4.
Yeah.
So I
They're
wonder
saying
if
he
they
might be back Friday in Colorado, but I'm honestly hoping he's not, because I just don't see the point in trotting him out there if he's not 100%.
why risk him being there in August and September for games here in June?
Exactly.
So hopefully they can put it together. But no, let's talk about the only team on this podcast that's in first place, Arizona Diamondbacks, with your NL Rookie of the Year. I said it before the season. I put money on it. It's looking really good for me right now. Corbin Carroll had his first career 4-hit game the other day. I love watching this team. Like they steal the amount of stolen bases that they just. I need to look it up, like where they are team wise, but I feel like they've got to be in the top half of just stolen bases. Ketel Marte, I said it before the season. If we get, I think it was 20, whatever year he finished third in the MVP, I was like, if we get that Ketel Marte, then they will make the playoffs.
They're fourth in stolen bases.
2019. Yeah, he had 32 homers, 92. His slash line was 321, 329, 389, 592 with a 981 OPS. I said, if they get that player, there's without a doubt. I was like, oh, they'll probably get that final wildcard spot. Right now, I want the division. I want them to win the NL West, take it from the Dodgers, even though everyone's like, oh, the Padres and the Dodgers are going to fight for it. And that's what people thought at the beginning of the season. They have to make moves at the trading deadline. Like, I want a legit closer, not this closer by committee. I don't know if you guys saw the grand slam that Castro gave up to Rosario on Sunday.
Yeah, if he wouldn't have given that up, you guys would have been the best record in the NL going into this week.
Literally, it was a sinker that didn't sink. It was literally right in the middle of the plate. Like when you put a ball on a tee when you practice, that's where the ball was. Rosario didn't even have to swing that hard because it was right in the middle of the plate. We were up by 1 at that point. Bases were loaded with 2 outs. We almost got out of it. We had a chance to win 2 of the 3 games. We only won 1 against the Braves. I thought they looked very, very good. Ronald Acuna Jr. is unbelievable. He is NL MVP right now. And if he continues because I think he's on pace for like high 30s home runs, almost 65 stolen bases. So that is definitely absolutely insane. But no, like any knee injury, it takes probably a good full 1.5 2 years to come back. And what we're looking at there for Ronald Acuna Jr. So the 3 players that I want them to trade for, I want either Dylan Cease. That one's going to take a lot because he has 3 years of control left. So that's going to take some of our top prospects to trade for. Take Pavin Smith. You can take Pavin Smith. I don't want Pavin Smith. Pavin Smith is absolutely trash. He is the definition of mid. He's an average hitter, average defender, average speed, average power. So yes, take him. Please involve him in any trade. Dylan Cease, I'd be happy with. Lucas Giolito, I'd be fine with as well. Another improvement that would be over our current starting rotation. And then Alexis Diaz, the Reds closer. That's who I want because he's a actual legit closer, not these guys that they're using that are like middle relief that they're trying out and it works for like a week or two and then they get blown up. So those are the three that I would like them to trade for. And I think depending on what happens with Chicago, those guys could be available approaching the trade deadline. Right now, I don't think we're seeing any moves till at least a week before. Or if some of these teams kind of fall off in the Central on both sides, I definitely could see those teams becoming sellers. But like right now, if you're within 3 games of the division or wild card, why would you punt on this season?
Yeah, I don't think the White Sox are going to be seller at the deadline, especially not their 1 and 2.
Yeah, I mean, it would take a haul, but like we were talking about before we came on, like Arizona's got those prospects. You're probably going to have to give up one of those major league players right now. So it's like, I know you mentioned Pavin Smith, but like who else? Who else are you willing to give up? Because I feel like if you want one of those frontline starters, it's going to cost you. But I mean, there's 100 games left in the season, so there's obviously still a lot of baseball. So it's going to be really interesting to see what the Diamondbacks do. I think the one thing that's most impressive about them this year is they're the only team in the NL West that has a winning record against teams better than 500 right now. And that really shows like they're not just smoke and mirrors. Like they're beating decent teams and they're winning games when they need to. So they're going to be a really fascinating team to watch the second half of the season. Like, I mean, obviously being in the division, I've seen them like, and Brandon, you being a big fan, like I can see the talent that's on that team, but obviously there's some holes in that starting pitching in the bullpen that could be factors late in the season. So it's going to be a really interesting watch the rest of the season to see what they can do.
I could still see them going for a bat too. They don't hit a lot of home runs. They use their speed and contact a lot.
Yeah.
Like the real own power hitter. I mean, if you take out the month of May, it was basically just Christian Walker. Gurriel Jr. God, that trade. I love that freaking trade. Thank you, Toronto, for literally giving us Gurriel Jr. and Moreno for absolutely nothing. Varsho hasn't done anything for you, so thank you for willing to part with those two. But no, like they have, I think, only 3 guys with more than 10 home runs. Everyone else is like 4 or 5, so they don't have a lot of power. So a big time power bat would be nice to see. But I don't know if there is a position group that I'm willing to sell the farm on, it's probably closer. Because I just feel like they could, with their starting pitchers, I think we could make do with what we have. Now, I would like to get, a better third starting pitcher than Zach Davies. Zach Davies just isn't it. But, like, it is just mind-boggling how many games the past 2 seasons that they have blown just based in the 8th and the 9th.
Yeah.
So you get that closer, I would feel a lot better. Like if you ask me, all right, do you want a power bat, starting pitcher, or closer, and you can only get one, I personally would rather them go after a closer. If there is a top 10, top 15 closer available. But if there's someone that's really not, like there's no one that lights out, I'm like, is it worth trading those prospects? We'll have to just wait and see what the market looks like there approaching the All-Star break. And because we're like, The trade deadline is August 1st. We're at June 8th. So we probably still have like 40 games at least
Yeah.
till even we determine who the buyers and sellers are. So a lot can change. So there. Moving on to our series of the week. Got the Texas Rangers and the Tampa Bay Rays. The two best teams there. Probably you could say in all of Major League Baseball and the American League. Just in terms of just scoring runs, Texas is just putting on a clinic every day. I know as of yesterday, Marcus Semien was at a 25 game hit streak, and they did not play today. So it's at 25.
Yeah. It's two teams too going at it that have already crossed the 40 win threshold. So that's going to be super interesting to see and watch this weekend. The pitching matchups honestly kind of favor Tampa Bay. Glasnow is pitching on Friday, which I think this is his third game from coming back off of the IL. So you'd like to see him take a step forward, obviously. And facing that lineup that's hot is obviously going to be something that's going to be a big time testing ground for him, obviously, and dude, like, who would have thought that Nathan Uvalde, after the stinking like season he had last year for the Red Sox, would like get a chain of scenery and like come in and be lights out. That's going to be an interesting matchup too as well, because Tampa Bay has this kid that they brought up, Bradley, too. He's kind of like, he's been that hot and cold pitcher basically back and forth, for them. So, I think it's going to come down to the Sunday's game when you have both aces going against one another. And I don't know how that's not Sunday night baseball with the pitching matchup that they have. That
because
right
it's
there to
Boston, New York, and they always put Boston, New York, regardless of.
same time,
I was literally, I had not looked. I was gonna be like, do the Red Sox play the Yankees this week?
It's not gonna happen. A nuclear bomb went off over New York. Okay, so it's not gonna happen. Okay.
Oh yeah, I completely forgot about that. They're probably not even playing that.
Gonna happen.
Yeah, that's a good point. That's a good point.
Like, what was that cheesy movie like with Will Smith? Like at the end of days and stuff like that. I feel like that's what New York
I Am
is
Legend.
Right now. Yeah, that's it.
This guy don't look crazy in those videos, to be honest.
Yeah, like why? Like it's orange. It's not.
It looks
even
like someone put a filter.
It's not
on
brown,
over their
it's
camera.
orange. It's like astro orange almost. Like it's crazy. But no, absolutely, that's series of weeks. It's gonna be good baseball. The Rangers, I talked about this, before we came on. They're 15. They've won 15 out of their last 20. I'm looking forward to the next couple of months to see what they are. But honestly, how they've played lately has gotten to gain my attention, because let's face it, not only is pitching doing what they need to do, but that, like we said, that's a hot lineup right now, and it's crazy to me to see the runs that they're putting up and stuff like that. But like we said, there's a lot of baseball left. There's a lot of stuff that can happen. We have a lot of teams that are hot right now, but we have a lot of teams with huge depth and huge 1 through 9s that aren't healthy right now. And I think the weird part about it is, like we've said, we have so many players, I think, that are going to be players at the trade deadline, that it's going to be a really interesting finish. I keep looking down at the standings, and we can see a total overhaul in every single division across the board. I mean, let's face it, in our division, I think a team that's underperformed obviously is like Seattle, and then once you look at the AL East, Toronto fans are probably all in the same boat as like Chris. No offense, like they've gone out and gotten these guys, and they're like, what is going on? The Centrals, we could toss up every day. Philly, dude, let's talk about freaking Kyle Schwarber. Like, how in the world is he batting like one? What was it? It got down to like 143 or something like that. But then he just hits these random homers. to like keep a pulse or something like that. You want to talk about like World Series hangover, like the
Batting
Phillies have
171.
like what's his homers as of right now since
He
you
has
have it pulled?
37 total hits.
Yes, but how many of
16
those are
home
home runs?
runs.
That's what I'm saying. It's almost like he goes like 0 for 7 and then all of a sudden it's like boom, you get your Wawa hoagie, you know what I mean? But
Wow,
but it's kind of like, you look at that team could get hot, and then obviously, I mean, I know we hate to say it, and I know we hate to speak it, but let's face it, the Dodgers are hurting bad in pitching.
their
Okay?
bullpen
They're
is
hurting
Well, they
bad
just
in
they
pitching.
did they put Syndergaard on the IL today? Is that what it was?
yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, after you give up the home run to Cruz or the hits to Cruz, like it's like we've seen enough, basically. But
Yeah,
I
apparently
am saying, look,
it's a
I am
blister. It's a
I'm
blister.
I'm being a realist here, okay?
Yeah.
Like all the way across the board, there are multiple teams in the National League that if they can get their feet under them and do something at the deadline, I mean, the Mets have even been atrocious, but they're still they're 7.5 games back,
Yeah.
I mean, what are they going to do? Like, you and I both know the Mets fans are the easiest fans to hit the panic button and stuff like that. But dude, there is just so much that can happen right now. And, like I sent earlier, it was a weird stat, we saw Verlander stuff and we keep seeing these weird dynamics on pitchers and the highs and lows. We haven't had that pitcher that's just been dominant start in and start out this season. It's been really, really strange to see. It's gonna be cool, but I really feel like 2 months from now we're gonna see a lot of division mix up.
Yeah. To be honest, the team that I'm rooting for in the most, the Pirates. I want to see the Pirates take the Central. Like they haven't been anything since McCutcheon was there the first time.
It's like they would battle for that wild card spot in the 2010s,
Yeah.
year in year out. But like, I mean, Cincinnati and Pittsburgh are both teams that can really like make a move. I mean, they're within 5 games of Milwaukee. It's not like Milwaukee's anything like world beating right now. So I mean, it can take one series or maybe 1 week to really shift that division. But there's a lot of young, talented teams when we look across the league. We look at Miami. We look at a lot of these teams that like Baltimore. There's a lot of teams that are young but really good and really entertaining right now. So I think it's making this final 100 games of the season. It's gonna be some really fun baseball to watch throughout the league.
For sure.
What I would love to see is De La Cruz do what Rushman did for the Orioles last year. They bring him up.
Take Rookie of the Year.
Shut up. I knew one of you was gonna say it, but what I mean is like they're hovering, like they're just below 500, and then they win, like they finish the rest of the year winning like 55% of their games and finishing with over 500 and making a run at a playoff spot. And or the Orioles last year, it was close to the wild card. The way the NL Central is, it's going to be the NL Central title. I could definitely see him, if he's as good as everyone is saying he is and what we've seen through 3 games, he could definitely do that.
Yeah.
So yeah, like he was literally the talk of baseball the last 3 days. Especially with just that home run was unbelievable. I'm like, oh my Lord.
Give me all the young, entertaining talent that's going to come up and make pizzazz in these markets because I'm all for it.
Yeah, I am very excited. And like the Diamondbacks were not supposed to be good this year. Like they weren't supposed to make their move until 24, and they're doing it in 2023. So, it has shifted my expectations because my expectations were like mid 70s wins. Like I was fine with that. I want that division right now. Like
Brandon,
I want the
do they make the playoffs?
Yes, I think the Diamondbacks make the playoffs.
Okay.
I would like the division, but I still think they are one of the top 6 teams in the National League. So
right.
I think they're gonna end up at the very least with a wild card spot, because I think the Padres will figure it out. They're too that roster is too much talent to not be. It's why everyone picked them as a favorite.
So here's the fun question: out of the three of our teams, who do you think has the best record at the end of the season, Brandon? I would love to hear that right now.
Astros. Sorry, I just I
No, that's
think
fine. I was wondering if you're going to say Diamondbacks. So
no. I think once we get to August and September, that experience from the Astros and the inexperience from the Diamondbacks will come to the forefront.
We're a second half team, and for some reason we can't get healthy ever.
Damn.
But no, at the
Colors.
same time too, I really feel like hiring Brown, our new general manager, was the right move because he is a crafty negotiator. And let's face it, at this point too, you know, I can vent as much and be as frustrated as all get out with all the one-run losses that we've had and having a lot of pitchers poo the bed, but a lot of people don't realize right now that the Astros have a guy like Hunter Brown that we knew was going to take a step forward, but we have JP France and Brian Belak that are literally minor league pitchers pitching in our rotation right now. So for them to actually be where they are, you know, I could be frustrated. You know, we lost 3 games to Toronto that we shouldn't have lost, especially going up there. It's the same thing with us, Chris. We know as Astro fans, and we have for the past 3 years, if we score double-digit runs the next day, they're only going to score 1 run. It is almost a common theme every time. If you don't believe me, just go back to your MLB app after we get off of here and look at the Astros. Every time they score double-digit runs, the next day they just blank. Another thing that we've conveniently given to Valdez is the Verlander effect, on where you have your ace pitcher go out there and you only put up 2 or 3 runs, which is super frustrating when somebody's out there shoving for 8 innings a night for you. But I think we figure it out. You know, I know we talked, or you guys sent right before we came on, the whole Jordan thing on him getting pulled. I don't think that's that big of a deal. I mean, somebody actually went and kind of pinpointed. It looked like he kind of tweaked over a little bit too much and grimaced, but he literally swung the bat like 2 more times after it happened. A lot of people were anxious too about Altuve. Altuve set out 2 days with a kind of a quad injury too as well. You know, Tucker's figuring out, Bregman's figuring out where those guys are hitting. But dude, tonight was super frustrating. Abreu got thrown out at second on too big of a lead, you know, after a pitch out, which was crazy to me. And then Pena not hustling down the line. Just everything mentally right now on this team, we're not taking the shots that we need to take and the opportunities that we need to grab. So my whole thought process is right now I'm not worried about the division because I know for a fact right now the Rangers are firing at all RPMs and we're hanging around mid right now. And I'm willing to put my money on my team because I know, number one, we're a second half team and we're not fully there yet. And I don't think that the Rangers can keep this pace up. And honestly, I can say that for a lot of teams that are in first place right now across both leagues. So like I said, it's going to be super, super fun to see what happens after the All-Star break and the trade deadline.
You brought up the Rangers, and it made me think: is Jacob deGrom a Hall of Famer right now?
No.
All right. So,
in fact, once you have Tommy John
y'all
surgery,
said that so damn fast. I was like, oh, damn.
When you have Tommy John surgery once, I'm pretty sure that you get the second one for free. So
it's just, I think, what was it, 2017 to 2019 when he actually made 30 plus starts? He dominant.
For
literally
sure,
the best pitcher in all.
We can say the same thing for Steven Strasburg. Okay,
yeah,
and I mean, Brandon, that this was pre-Chris, but you remember when Washington made the World Series? I was pushing for him to get Cy Young love. Okay, and that right there just shows you, you know, we gotta quit giving it to these. It's a slippery slope. Okay, we gotta quit pushing the younger guys to the side when the older veteran is in the talks, because we can always say, oh, they're going to get one down the road eventually. Because, dude, look at this guy. Like, injury after injury after injury after injury. Both of these guys have the same timeline and the same crazy injuries, and it's sad to see and it's not sad to see, but it's a thought of what could those guys have been. Those guys could have been generational talent if they could have stayed healthy, and their bodies failed them. You know what I mean? And that's the crazy thing for a pitcher is, I think, we like the big hitter and we like the flashy infielder, but I've always looked at dominant pitchers in that generation talent. That is the athlete when it comes to baseball. It doesn't matter that they're not playing every other 5-day rotation to keep your body in full top tier performance wise year in and year out, and to go out there and to shove 80 to 100 pitches every time you go out. That is more impressive to me than anything in baseball.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, like I look at both of those guys, and it's just terrible what you hear about Strasburg this week about his arm just being so done that he probably will never pitch again. But I will also look back to him being at San Diego State, and rest of this little Tony went overusing him and letting him throw himself into oblivion. His last year there is they made the NCAA tournament and trying to do that, and then the velocity these guys were throwing game in and game out, like it's just their bodies. It's one of those things that's just so fascinating when you look at Major League pitching now and just the speeds they're throwing, how they're throwing their arms, and there's that just delicate line of throwing too hard and destroying your elbow and being right there in the green. And obviously a lot of these guys can figure it out, but you look at a guy like DeGrom who played 10 seasons, and I think 5 of them he made more than 30 starts, so only half of those he only made 30 starts. But I mean, when he's on, but it's really disheartening to see guys like this that are just not able to go out there, and especially as they go up in age, they don't have that same like build on their arm that they had, and unfortunately they break down, and it's rough to see, honestly.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think Strasburg throws another pitch.
No, he doesn't.
No, I don't think so either.
I mean,
it's sad.
He's still owed a lot of money.
I mean, he's collecting. So I saw the DeGrom contract. They have opt-outs if he has surgery each year, right? That's what the thing was. So they're not on the hook for his entire contract.
I'm honestly, I don't know. I don't know that, to be honest with you.
I feel like I heard somebody talking about that. I'll see if I can look it up right now. But yeah, I believe they have some weird opt-out where if he had surgery or if he had like an extended like injury, unfortunately, like they have team options each year. So
yeah, I'm looking at Sports Track, and sometimes they don't explain it very well. Doesn't say anything about that. Like, he's 35.
So here it is. The one benefit the Rangers have as a result of the DeGrom injury is that due to contract stipulations, they have an option for the pitcher. So they'll be able to utilize options to get out of the deal.
Wow. I mean, he's not pitching again till 2025 probably.
Yeah, I mean, it's this year or next, unfortunately. And you just hope that he can come back and learn how to pitch, because if he comes back and tries to be the same pitcher, I unfortunately foresee the same thing happening again.
That might be the issue he's been struggling here the last couple seasons. Is he's trying to pitch the same way he has, and his elbow is just like, no, please stop, this hurts. So yeah, like, I don't. The thing with Strasburg just was a real bummer to see. Like, it really was.
Yeah,
like he literally hasn't been the same since they won the World Series.
100%.
I think he's pitched like 8 games since then.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So real quick, I wanted to just we kind of forgot it, and I felt bad, but we could have made it a whole nother pod about the regionals, but we have super regionals this weekend. So if you want to hear a little college baseball, I have really, really kept up with college baseball this season. So listen, okay, I'm going to run through it real fast and furious, okay? You got Wake Forest at Alabama, okay? Stanford and Texas is like, that's just so juicy, okay? On top of that, you got LSU and Kentucky, okay? Then you got Southern Miss playing Tennessee, South Carolina's playing Florida, Duke of Virginia,
Indiana State.
Oral Roberts playing Oregon, and thanks for just taking the wind out of my sails. Cinderella story, Indiana State guys playing TCU. I mean, I love it when you have these guys like Long Beach State, Cal State Fullerton, these no names, Southern what was it, Coastal Carolina before they started cutting their hair and being good at football. It's it's really, really cool. Look, another thing though, SEC dominant. So okay, 6 teams, they tie it again with the most teams per division going to super regional. The Texas Stanford is going to be the hottest series to watch. So if you're going to find something to watch this weekend, watch that one. Florida and South Carolina would be my second pick if you want to go back and forth. But I will tell you right now, if Tennessee can take care of Southern Miss, LSU is going to take care of Kentucky. That next round will probably be what you would need to watch because they've gone back and forth on it. But I have already told you guys, I don't know if we said it on the pod if confuse our conversations or in the back room. This LSU team from top to bottom is probably one of the most well put together college baseball teams I have ever seen. I would literally put them against any hot team in the past, and I'm talking about Texas teams. I'm talking about Rice baseball, Brandon, when they were dominant in the early 2000s and the 90s. This team from top to bottom, I feel like with a core that good, a pitching group that good, and just the juggernauts that they have on the 1 through 9, it would be a failure if LSU baseball does not take this whole thing. And I will boldly stand by that. If anybody else in the field can get through them Bayou Bengals, that's going to be just more icing on the cake to hold that trophy up at the end.
I think one interesting team, and I mean, there's a few interesting teams because you look at a lot of these ranked teams that kind of got punked at home, but TCU scoring 20 runs against Arkansas in the first game and then 12 in the second. Like, that's very impressive. And I mean, it's been interesting. Oregon, like, getting out of the group in Nashville, like beating a really good Vanderbilt team, and Vanderbilt, team that's always is traditionally good going into the World Series, like, struggled.
Yeah, Archie should have been there, okay? And I will say that, but this TCU team did take care of business. Another team that I was really rooting for, you guys all know that I'm a huge A&M nut. We went in and beat Stanford. We took care of business, and all we had to do was beat them once, and we got slapped by them in that second game because that would have been a super fun regional to actually see A&M play Texas.
That would have been awesome.
But at the same time, it's crazy to see a lot of these teams get hot and stuff like that because I think one of the teams didn't even win but a quarter of their games and ended up winning the tournament to win the division. It's slipping my mind right now. But another team to look out for, and I'm going to tell you the dark horse, okay? And I predicted the dark horse back, 3 years ago, Brandon, when Michigan won it? My dark horse right now, and it's not really a dark horse because, let's face it, they've had a great program, but a team that has gotten hot is Florida, okay? So watch out for them. And I know that's not it's not like that's not a bold pick play because they've always had a dominant program, but that's a bunch of young core guys, okay? And if you watch college baseball, you realize that. But that team's hot right now, and we talk about that, and it plays such a factor in baseball. If you have a hot team and you can ride momentum, you can take it all.
Yeah.
Super regionals, y'all. It's going to be very exciting to watch.
Go on ESPN Plus. If you got ESPN Plus, you can watch any game you want. Do it.
Oh,
I will be on it this weekend.
And what's cool about it is a lot of these
I will probably too, because
the
all of the Diamondbacks games are like early first pitch.
For sure.
Yeah.
So I'll
Wake up, baseball, go to sleep, baseball. The dream, right, boys?
Right.
Yes, exactly. I do appreciate everyone for tuning in to this week's episode of Bases Loaded. Make sure to check out the description of the video to see all of our socials. If you haven't yet, please subscribe to the channel so you don't miss any future content. Like and comment as well. We'll see y'all next week.